The Hedgeless Horseman here. It's August 8th, 2023. In this video, I thought I would talk about a very important, I think at least, topic, which I've discussed in some of my previous videos, but I would really like to touch on it more, especially in light of the recent rally in Aston Bay, which I think perfectly highlights how important it is to, well, I was going to say, know what people are going to think or say, etc., before they actually do it, and how psychology works when especially greed is involved. So yeah, the topic is going to be impact of narrative. I think this is one of those things you should be mindful of and have in your tool belt, because I mean, the idea is to stack up as many edges as you can as an investor or a speculator. The more the more edges you stack up, the better your returns will probably be. It's like, in my case, for example, I'm very bad at selling, but at least I'm, I would say pretty good at buying and stuff like that. So like, you don't need to have every single edge in the world, but I do think that everything counts. If you could just learn one additional, important concept to apply into your investing strategy or speculating strategy, who knows, maybe that will earn you a few extra % per year. And over the long run, if you add just one tool that grants you, let's say, 2% extra returns per year, that would be absolutely massive in the long run. 2% compounding, extra 2%, let's say you pick up something else. So that's why, in my opinion, like I said a bunch of times before, I think it's much more important to learn about investing, psychology, market psychology, and all of that than actually reading up on, being a geologist or a mining engineer. I mean, if I would say that it's, for example, better to listen to Rick Rule talk about mining investing than than to follow the typical, let's say, an hour of geology about whatever. It's like some system. I mean, some things I think is very good to know, that like in low sulfidation epithermal deposits, for example, that what the bonanza zone is or the feeder zone is, and how that can telescope and all of that, and how valuable they can be. But like Rick Rule has a lot of common sense, smart things to say about investing, because he's not a geologist, but he's still rich as hell, and it's probably not just luck. So let's go into it. There was a news release out from a company called American West on the Australian. They're listed in Australia, and I guess the headline or title was, announce major copper discovery. The mayor found a sediment-hosted copper system at depth. To help you dream a little bit, this is Kamoa-Kakula section. This Kamoa-Kakula section is fascinating. This is obviously the world class, especially. I don't actually know which carries the value for Ivanhoe mines, but I guess it's Kakula, because I think the grades are higher and all of that, but doesn't matter. I mean, these are both, as far as I know, sediment hosted copper system, absolutely massive, and that's why Ivanhoe has a market cap of, I don't know, $17-18 billion or something. Tier one stuff, sediment hosted copper, and can be, hugely valuable, obviously. So it's like, as soon as I saw that, and I know Aston Bay has been after this kind of mineralization for some years already. They've already had earnings with Antofagasta and with BHP, I think, and they both walked away. And now they have a deal with this American West, where American West can earn in 80% and Aston Bay would keep 20%. The idea, obviously, is that, I mean, if it's something big, 20% of something big can be huge for a micro-capper. But just seeing this and knowing it's like, okay, because Gold Discovery is run by Luke, he's a great investor, and it's like, he's probably not the first of all, people are gonna see this slide, this tweet, and he's probably not the only one that's looking at this or realizing it's like this is some of the best FOMO fuel you can ever want. Because here you have a reference point. Almost everybody knows the Kakula discoveries. They're talked about all the time. People get prizes for discovering them. I mean, one guy on Inflection Resources team, for example, I think he got an award for one or both of these discoveries. Anyway, so these are giant. These are world-class reference points. So I mean, I immediately took a small punt, because as I thought is that how these kind of stories tend to work, until more news is out or more information or assays and all that, the dream is still alive. And of course the dream can become a reality. I mean, every single world-class deposit was a dream at some stage with only a few holes. But my thinking was like, okay, I know how this kind of can play out. And that's that everybody is gonna, I mean, this is gonna spread around. Price is probably gonna go up, and as price goes up, people get more and more convinced that it's the real thing, simply because other people are voting with their feet and the price is going up. And when you have such a high, blue sky number reference point, 18, let's say 18 billions, even though it's like, obviously, I mean, they would only get to keep 20%, and there's a long, they're a long way off from proving it's even worth 1 billion, or anything at all, really. But still, it's like, if you have this kind of reference point, that just kind of sets the stage for, no price is too high kind of mentality. Because what does it matter if, it doubles or triples? Because it could be, another Kakula. In that case, 20% though, let's say 15 billion or whatever. Then it could, four back, or double again and double again and double again and double again, etc., etc. So everybody can have an excuse until proven otherwise by more information assays. The dream that this will be another Kakula type discovery is alive. And I remember, I'm going to jump around here a bit. I recently talked with a guy who's with a fund about psychology, about blue sky psychology, let's say, about the importance, or not importance, but the help from reference points and how that leads to FOMO. Some people might remember Garibaldi Resources, and I've talked about this in a bunch of videos. Garibaldi Resources were drilling west of where SK Mining has their land position. This company, I think it ran up around 4,000% before a single assay was out. So that is, I think the actual market cap was like, I don't know, 400 million, maybe up to 500 million. I think last I checked, Aston Bay's market cap, given that they have 20% of it, and if we only count the copper target, it implied a 200 million for 100% stake. So it's not a Garibaldi of 400 or 500 million, but it's not too far off. And the idea with or the thing that made Garibaldi go up was that, well, first price went up, and people started talking. It's like, why is price going up? And as price went up, the blue sky potential that people were talking about kept increasing. So I remember, it's like I just took search for Voisey, meaning Voisey's Bay, the famous, I think it was around 4 billion takeout. Yeah, Voisey's Bay went for 4 billion. That was the famous Friedland play. I mean, funny enough, he's with Ivanhoe as well. But anyway, you can see the chat, for example, here. It's like, and believe me, me personally, being involved with Novo, it's like, yeah, why was I so bullish on Novo? Because if it worked, they would have, the lion's share of let's say, an intact Witwatersrand type gold basin. I mean, personally, I'm pretty sure that I think the gold is there. I think it's everywhere. I think that's kind of obvious, given that there's gold-bearing conglomerates everywhere. But unfortunately, we don't seem to be able to either drill or profitably mine it. So, I mean, I would say the gold is there in Novo's case. It's just that it's a hassle to mine, and you can't even drill it up. So that's a big problem, obviously. But the point is that, okay, Voisey's Bay, that's a 4 billion. So that's set the reference point. If you bought Garibaldi up to 400 million or whatever, it's like, if it's another Voisey's Bay, there's still a 10 bagger left. That's why these narratives and huge blue sky reference points are so important, because it allows people to dare to dream. If there was no Voisey's Bay, I don't believe Garibaldi would have headed this high. The thing is also it evolves as price goes up. People involved, because everybody wants to see their stocks go high, right? I'm not saying everybody mentioning Voisey Bay is a pumper, etc. But it's like in Garibaldi's case, that was before a single drill hole, before a single assay result was out. They were already talking about Voisey's Bay, and it had been drilled before this project they had. Anyway, so as price kept increasing, then the kind of problem is, okay, how do you to get people greedy from here when it's, I don't know, 30 million market cap, 40 million, then people can see, it's like, okay, well, if it's another Voisey's Bay, there's a 10 bagger left. And it's like, but as it heads higher, it becomes increasingly hard to get people greedy enough to want to buy up your shares. So then, not long after, it started to, as price went up, no additional information really, but price steered away from Voisey's Bay, and people started talking about the next Norilsk. Norilsk is even bigger than Voisey's Bay. So you see, as price goes up, people want, for lack of a better word, an even bigger carrot to pump with, because obviously people fear that the momentum might subside if people's let's say newcomers see, and it's like, oh, I mean, if it's a Voisey's Bay, it's just gonna go up X times more, but if it's Norilsk, there's 20 bagger left. So that's so interesting how it kind of evolves as price goes up without any more information really. The narrative changes if it can, but if there was no Voisey's Bay, if there were no Norilsk, Garibaldi would never have done this ride. and I think the same goes for like Newfound Gold. I think Newfound Gold would not have had the start it had if there was no Fosterville. Fosterville, which probably was worth, I don't know, 6 billion or more, that allows people to, dare to dream, because there is an example of such a deposit being worth 6 billion. It's not reinventing the wheel or inventing the wheel. It's just finding another wheel or reinventing the wheel. You know what I mean? So simply knowing that there is such a thing as Fosterville, that gets huge speculation premium put on Newfound Gold. I mean, I think it's a lot less speculative now, because now they made I don't know how many discoveries, but it's like that kind of explains why it was, people allowed themselves or people were willing to bid up and there were not enough sellers, because that narrative, which might prove to be true, by the way, or it could even be bigger than Fosterville, who knows, but still, the key point I'm making here is that people get more reasons to buy something at high prices if there is an example of where, where it's okay to chase, if you know what I mean. Let's say, it was called overvalued when it listed. I think that was around 100 million market cap already. But if it gets up to 200 million, it's like, yeah, okay, maybe, that's maybe a bit much for, a few drill holes. But it's like, hey, if the, the narrative, if this is another Fosterville, this will look cheap one day. This will look cheap one day. And again, same with Garibaldi. Started off, should I buy here? It's kind of a lot for a company that doesn't even have an asset result. But hey, don't worry about it. If it's a new Voisey's Bay, you won't care, and that's true. If it ended up being a Voisey's Bay, even the person that bought here would have made a lot of money, and if it was a Norilsk, everybody would have made even more money. So in some sense it's both rational and irrational, because okay, if you have take SK Mining for example. SK Mining, I don't think we would have had this run up here if there was no SK Creek. SK Creek, which today would probably be worth 45 billion. Given that, well, in this case, this is actually in the same camp as well, same geology, well, kind of same geology. There's certainly targets and places where the, same age rocks and all of that is confirmed. So, it's a true neurology play, whereas in, Newfound Gold's case, well, you have, one deposit, Fosterville is in Australia, and this Newfound Gold is in Newfoundland. In SK Mining's case, SK Creek is like right next door. So we know there is we know that district can produce a, $45 billion VMS system, and they're chasing VMS system. So it's rational because there's evidence of it. So you know it's possible because SK Creek is around. And it's like Snowline Gold's case. If there was no, Fort Knox, for example, I think it would have a bit harder time to get going. Now the funny thing is it's eclipsing Fort Knox. So now that is again kind of spreading to the other Tintina place, because now you can look in the forums of the Tintina Gold players. Everybody wants to find the new Snowline. So the more valued Snowline becomes and the harder it becomes, the strength, the power of that narrative increases, because it hikes up the blue sky reference point. If Snowline is at 2 billion, that's gonna same. Let's say a junior drills a reduced intrusion gold system, has whatever results. It will have higher share appreciation if Snowline, a neighbor, is at 2 billion than at 500 million, because 2 billion is a higher blue sky reference point. And okay, to go back to Aston Bay. So Aston Bay, yeah, it's gone up, I don't know, 450% in 2 days or something, maybe 3 days. Just gonna put on a log chart here. If you use a log chart, I mean, it looks kind of like, yeah, a big trend break. So, longer the base, higher in space, all of that. So I bought around, I don't know, 6 cents, something like that. Have already, taken quite a bit of profits yesterday or today. Was like, I have no idea where Aston Bay is gonna go. Could it be another, Kakula type discovery? Maybe. Is it a slam dunk? I would say absolutely not. But back to the original point, you can see how you can see this kind of psychology in the Aston Bay forum, for example. Well, here you have a name drop of Philo Mining, for example, and that's, I was gonna say, kind of fair enough. It's like, I'm not saying I'm not gonna, if I own a junior that has a very, possibly very large discovery, I don't want to throw stones. It's like, I know I can be very, pumpy as well. But I'm just observing here, if you know what I mean. And then it's like, it obviously didn't take long, given that Kamoa-Kakula is worth billions, to talk about billions. So here we have, that's the best one. Here we have one, what happened here? People finally realizing Bay is sitting on 20% of what is projected to be about 173 billion Australia, with most of the play still unexplored. So it's like, forget about, 17 billion or whatever Ivanhoe mining is worth, which is actually mining 2 of these copper mines. They built everything, billions of capex and all of that. They don't have 100% of that, though. I don't remember how much that, maybe 60%. So that, which just points out how extremely, large that discovery is. I don't actually remember exactly how much, what their stake is nowadays. But it's like, there's, just throwing out 173 billion. I guess he made a calculation somewhere. I'm assuming he's talking about, gross metal value or something. But still, it's like, it's pretty ridiculous to throw out 173 billion. That's, I think, the market cap of Rio Tinto. They have not discovered another Rio Tinto. Anyway, but there you get it. It's like, okay, 173 billion. Okay, if you are, quote, projected to have 20% of what is projected to be, 173 billion, there's obviously, the sky is the limit. No price is too high until you get, to, what would that be? Until you get to $34.6 billion. So that is just gross pumping. Obviously, it's like, I assume it's gross metal value, etc. And it's like, I would say that is quite pumpy. He could at least state that this is gross metal value, etc. But it gets better. It's like, this move is 3 days old. And I mean, there's around 120 people in the room today. And like I was discussing with a friend yesterday, it's like, how these typically work. You have to increase blue sky to keep people excited, because if people bought, again, Garibaldi up to 200-300 million, it's like, how are we going to get people to pay now? Because starting to close in on a decent chunk of another Voisey's Bay. Well, we're going to talk about it. It's the next Norilsk instead. And all of a sudden, blue sky ceiling goes higher, and all of a sudden it's okay to buy again, because now when you thought you only had a 10-bagger chance, now you have a 20-bagger chance, because people say it's the next Norilsk. So it makes people to allow themselves to be greedy, if you know what I mean. But the best part is it didn't take too long. Again, this movie is like 3 days long before a guy started talking about. So copper potential on the island is in the trillion to 1.5 trillion range, possibly higher with percentages. Add zinc and silver, potentially a 5 to 6 trillion project when all is identified. Again, that's what using what we do know and making some assumption based on those factors. I mean, oh, I mean, this is gold. I mean, this is the beauty of the. I was going to say the beauty and the greed of the junior sector. That's what obviously people typically do not see because we've been in a bear market for the last 3. But it's like this is an example of how absolutely batshit crazy this sector will be when price goes up or when there's momentum. You know, it happens every time. Every day, actually. If gold goes up, people expect a higher price tomorrow, next week. If gold goes down today, everybody expects lower prices tomorrow or next week. But it's this what I'm talking about. It's like, well, I don't think I've seen somebody throw out the $5 to $6 trillion project, which would be worth more than all the miners on Earth. But that's what we're talking about. It's like it just escalates as soon as, because I bet a lot of people here might have. I mean, I think a lot of them might also be in just for the pump. They get in, hope it goes up on hype a bit, and then get out. It's like fair enough. I mean, I was gonna say that's kind of what I'm doing, albeit I'm not haven't been pumping it. Pumping the stock or even barely talked about it because I don't know enough of the company for starters, but I know it's not going to be a $5 to $6 trillion dollar project. But that's how it works. So if somebody gives any credence to this at all, what price is too high to pay for Aston Bay? There is no price too high, because it would be worth, according to this guy, $1 trillion. It's a 35 million, and 20%, 5 trillion. That's $1 trillion. So it kind of, I mean, the idea is, if you want to pump really hard, to give people a free card to buy as high as they want. To greater fools to just keep buying it up. And again, I'm not saying that the project is bogus or anything like that. But this is a comment I mean, this is obviously ridiculous. I mean, I laughed when I saw this because I think it's the most pumpy post I have ever seen since I got into juniors last 8 years. This is, I mean, I had to bookmark it because it's so almost unique. But that's the idea. It's, again, to how do you get people to buy after something has gone up, and people might get you have buyer's fatigue, or people don't, the ones who know about story don't want to put in any more money. Just increase the blue sky potential to get people greedy, because in that case, let's say you put 5% of your entire portfolio in a play like this. Some might have put in more, I don't know. And you're sitting there like worried, and it's like, oh Jesus, I mean, if this doesn't work out, or or whatever, maybe what's the upside left? I don't know, maybe it can go up 5 times more. And someone's like, the projections, it's projected to be 5 to 6 trillion. Then it's like, whoa, okay, I might retire on this play alone. I should put 100% of my money into Aston Bay because some guy said it's projected to be, $5 to $6 trillion, or $1 to $6 trillion. that is, I mean, that's kind of how it works. I mean, most people are obviously not like this guy, and again, I mean, I think it's a legit thesis, but it's like far from proven. I mean, in the latest hole, for example, it seems that, I mean, they appear to have hit, at least in this hole. I have not gone through all their news releases and all the results. I just know that this project has been drilled, by several operators and all of that, and everyone knows there's copper there, etc., etc. It's in Nunavut, in the very far north, Arctic North, which is probably a problem. So you might need even higher grades than you would need in Congo with Ivanhoe mines, Kamoa-Kakula, for example. But still, it seems that, well, again, this looks like a pretty good intercept, but it seems that the big thing is the sediment-hosted copper, the Kamoa-Kakula type mineralization. This is not that sediment-hosted thing, which could, I think they have some slides here. Yeah, I mean, the sediment-hosted idea, I guess here, for example, is that all of this could be have a copper layer here, copper layer, and you see the scale bars like several kilometers and half a kilometer to a kilometer wide or something. Again, kind of like a copper seam. But it's like in this latest hole, at least, if we just look at the interval, which they believe is extension, they hit the same sediment sequence with copper, and this is like, I think, 850 meter step out or something from the last hit. So it's a very impressive step out, obviously, because you would have potential 850 meters of strike at least. But like in terms of just grade here, I saw someone throw around a few numbers, but if we look at, I think it's this interval here. Dense veining and broad fractures and 2.5% sulfides. The sulfides are chalcocite, and I guess this is, what is this? That should be, well, it's bornite and I was going to say chalcopyrite, I guess. Anyway, so okay, they list a visual estimation. It's just a visual estimation of 2.5%. So I mean, if we knew it was chalcocite, for example, that's 80% copper. So that's 0.8 times 0.025. That would be, if it was pure chalcocite, which is a very, very high grade mineral, that would grade 2%. That might be okay. I don't actually know. That might be doable up there in Nunavut. Not 100% sure. But if this comes out at, I don't know, 0.5%. Well, if we, to be a devil's advocate to myself, I mean, here in, Kakula looks more high grade, I guess. Much higher grades. But Kamoa had it, here are 2 hits that are below 2%, for example. So again, I don't know, would it work or not? Hard to tell, I guess. I mean, again, they've hit that horizon before, so yeah, I don't know. It's very hard because, okay, it's been drilled and all of that, but I think as far as I understand, they believe they have a new way of targeting it. It's like a new model, and that is gravity, where are they? These gravity anomalies that they might suggest where the actual copper is. And that might be true. I have no idea. Nobody knows. And here you have, near surface copper mineralization. So where is hole 3? Hole 3 is here. And I think these had some. But it's like, this is far away from being a Kamoa-Kakula type sediment-hosted copper system right now. But it's like, people are already out there talking about trillions of dollars Uh, so yeah, so yeah, I don't know. It's like, do they have a shot? Yeah, I believe they have a shot. How, what is the shot? I don't know. What's the, combined? What's the 100% inferred value for all this right now? I think it's up to around 180 to 200 million. That's not super cheap, obviously. What is the market cap of Bay? 35.69 times 5. 35.69 times 5. 178.5 million. So it's not pricing in nothing. I mean, there's I know quite a few copper explorers with nice hits and all of that. I mean, that are trading their copper projects are valued way less than 178 million, for example. They have other assets as well, though. But still, typically, all the value goes to one project, and this sediment-hosted copper thing appears to be the main course. So I don't know how this is going to play out. I think here we have a 10% sulfide intercept over 6 meters. That looks, that could run, I don't know, I don't know, 5 to 8% copper, maybe even. I mean, that's very good. I mean, but it's not the sediment hosted. It's not why the stock ran up. And I believe in this hole, for example, yeah, maybe pretty sure it's going to be less than 2% copper. Maybe 2-3 meters of, I don't know, 2 meters. Maybe 2 meters of 0.6% copper, something like that. I mean, it's okay, but I don't think that would be economic up here in Nunavut if you don't find better parts of the system. And not at these copper prices, at least. I don't think. But again, this is way, or the stage is just a hole. It's just one hole. I mean, even Kamoa, which appears to be the lower grade of the two monsters, had a 3 meter intercept of 1.71. So again, I don't know. Yeah. But still, again, I hope you understand what what I mean by it's like, you should front run how people are gonna think, what they're gonna say in the forums, how people are gonna act to other people saying stuff in the forums, etc. It's very thankful to have a very high blue sky narrative already in place. Because yes, Snowline, well, it had Fort Knox, but it did not have another Snowline. If there was already a Snowline and Snowline 2 came around, that would have gone up even faster, I think. But then we have, like, for example, that's what I like about Inflection Resources. They have the Cowal, the North Parks, Tomingli, and Cadia. Cadia is an absolute giant. That's worth, I don't know what it would be worth to find a Cadia complex today, but maybe 8 to 10 billion or something. I think the last report I saw by Credit Suisse had a $8 billion NPV on the Cadia mine. Cowal and North Parks, I'm just ballparking here, a couple $1 billion perhaps. And hopefully that would, to make a discovery when, copper really takes off, that would be great. So if they find something, because this is not across the world, a similar type. It's they're not drilling in, I don't know, Europe, and they find porphyry, alkalic porphyry, and people say, oh, hey, it's another Cadia. Or another North Parks or Cowal. This is actually in the same belt. So it, like the Duck Creek target, they believe that it has similarities to North Parks, for example. So obviously that's quite an easy narrative to attach, because there is a North Parks in this very belt. And there's a $8 billion behemoth to the southeast, in the same, region. So I mean, what happens if inflection makes a discovery hole? Of course, including myself, I'm gonna start dreaming about North Parks or a Koval, and if things go really well, maybe I'll start to dream about Cadia. So in those cases, that again, that allows people to think, well, hey, I know there's multi-billion dollar mines here. So if they find a similar type porphyry or porphyry complex, there is nothing saying that they can't find something similar because it's actually in the same belt. On contrary to that, which I talked about in my Headwater piece, was that these bonanza grade epithermal deposits, which Headwater Gold is searching for, which are right here. Bottom line is that historically speaking, whenever a high bonanza grade epithermal deposit was found in this region, it got mined, and that is the simple explanation why there are no real comparables today. I've looked up, I've done some more research on some other low sulfidation districts. I think it's called Cerro Negro, that's in, what is it, Peru or something, that actually got bought, that had 3 to 4 million ounces. Oh, that was a low sulfidation district. 3 to 4 million ounces, which doesn't sound huge. I mean, it's large, it's a very large mine. That sold for 3.6 billion in either the early 2000s or late 1900s. That's a multi-billion dollar deal deposit with a way lower gold price, obviously. But that's not in North America. So again, most of, and I mentioned some here, the Sleeper Gold deposit, only 1.66 million ounces, but goddamn did they make money. Average cost of less than $6 per ounce. And there were fortunes made on the Comstock lode. And here's Tonopah, 2 million ounces, 175 million ounces silver. And here you have some, Comstock lode, and I don't know all of these. Aurora, I know that's where they have projects nearby. And I don't think Midas is not in here, I guess. But it's like the Midas deposit, for example, which belongs to, well, Hecla owns the remnants of these types. If you find let's say a few million ounces of high grade low sulfidation, high grade to bonanza grade low sulfidation, those mines could be worth a couple billions. But there is no reference point, modern reference point, because these mines are so good, as I explain in this piece, that they get mined. Either mined, 100 years ago, or I don't know, more than 100 years ago, or actually in modern times. But that's like, this is over, 20 years. This is almost 30 years ago. Well, it started more than 30 years. So people have already forgotten about that. So that's the one thing why I think Headwater still is very cheap. And that's because I don't think retail people, including myself, we don't have a good reference point. We can't visualize how valuable high grade to bonanza grade high grade to bonanza grade low sulfidation epithermal mine could be worth. I think people are underappreciating Headwater, because again, there's nobody, I'm not seen anyone except my post here really talk about the value of, what were these worth. And it's hard because some were mined like 100 years ago, but by definition, if they could be mined 100 years ago, they would be very productive today. And you can read all the fortunes that were made from the Comstock lode, for example. Someone became a senator, financed several mining operations, made enormous profits from another U.S. senator, appears to be another senator, California's first millionaire. So I mean, you see, it's like a millionaire back then. So it's like the Comstock Lode, that was a huge one though. That was 8.4 million ounces of gold. But they were enormously valuable. Obviously, this was probably worth more than Fosterville. But we have no reference points to that. There's nothing that pops into people's minds like, oh right, I mean, oh, they can find a low sulfidation epithermal deposit Bonanza. Oh, why do I care about that? But it's like, if you find some of these mines were not bigger than 1.7 million, etc. And it's like what Headwater Management has said. Even if we, we would be happy finding 500,000 ounces, but they aim for 3 million ounces. If they find a 3 million ounce low sulfidation epithermal deposit, that's probably worth, with good grades. I wouldn't be surprised if that's worth at least 2 billion. But nobody recognized that really, except for Newcrest, obviously, since they did deals with them. That's what shocked people, I think. And that's why I think people haven't really, has still not sunk in. It's like, if Newcrest gets involved, I mean, they had a market cap of 17 billion. They need something big to move the needle for a $17 billion company. And still people haven't really figured out how much these can be worth. But Newcrest does. Like I said, majority of today's junior mining investors might not appreciate the value of finding one of these highly sought after systems intact, but the insider of Headwater Gold knows, and mayors like Newcrest Mining, Newmont Mining, and Sumitomo knows. Sumitomo is obviously involved with Irving Resources in Japan, and so is Newmont Mining. And I mean, GBM attracts Newcrest into 25 million gold farming at Mount Coulon. That's also a low sulfidation. I hope to have it in the... Apparently not. But it is a high low sulfidation epithermal district that I'm 99% sure of. And also, this was this year, Legacy Minerals secure farming and joint venture with Newmont Exploration at Ballura Gold Project. So this is also a large low sulfidation epithermal project. So you have Newcrest, Sumitomo, Newcrest again, Newmont, and Newmont. So you have the gold majors. They're involved with low sulfidation epithermal plays. But most juniors are drilling up the remnants, which I also described in this piece, like around Bullfrog today, for example. Hecla is drilling around Aurora. Paramount Gold are drilling around Sleeper, the remnants of Sleeper, and what's it called? Blackrock Silver have been drilling around Tonopah. So most juniors are drilling around the remnants. The high grade to Bonanza might have been mined 100 years ago, because it was that rich. And they're making projects today out of the remnants when the jewels of these projects have been plucked out. Headwater is looking for intact. They're actually looking for the jewels themselves. They're looking for the high grade to Bonanza grade portions. So that's just another, again, you can see at least in this one, and I did that in I think my Newfound Gold article. You name drop Fosterville, etc. Why? Because it's like it gives a reference point. There are examples of these actually being worth billions of dollars. And in the case of, well, again, Inflection has a example of where porphyry deposits in that area could be worth a couple to $8 billion in value. And you have, but Headwater does not have a modern reference point, because they were all mined. Because you could mine those without needing to be a modern block caving miner, and like they do in some of the porphyries and stuff. So yeah, that ties back to Kamoa, Kakula, and Aston Bay. So that's the long version of why I took a punt immediately in this. Not a big amount, but there's nothing to be jealous about. I didn't take a big position, but it's like, hey, getting a 100 to 200% return on a few bucks, which I can put into other juniors, which I think might be, maybe better risk rewards at this point in time than Aston Bay. Or the thing is, I don't know what the actual value is of Aston Bay. I don't know the geology well enough. I don't know the price. I haven't looked up, how much has already been drilled in places to, kind of damage the story, or what grades would need to find or something like that. But I know, think Inflection and the other companies I mentioned, they, some I think are very cheap. With Aston Bay, I don't know enough, but I just kind of knew that I think this is gonna go up because this narrative here is so strong. And what does every single speculator in the junior space want? To become rich. And if you would find another one of these and you own 20%, if you get in from a low point, you would actually, obviously could make a lot of money. But at this price, implied value of the copper project, let's say at 180 million, I don't know. I think it's not a no. I don't think it's a no-brainer at 180 million implied for the whole shebang. Well, it's going to be more because they're doing a financing at really, really low prices. But yeah. But if this turns out to be a major discovery, that would be great for the whole sector. Because that would get people to, again, more allowance to dream. Because there's, an example of people making a lot of money in the junior sector. And they probably want to make more money. And people who've heard people making money want to make money. So they go in and bet on juniors again. So it's like for the whole sector, it would be great if this proved out to be, world-class discovery. So yeah, I mean, I guess you can consider me biased. Somewhat biased. I don't have many shares of Aston Bay. So I mean, I'll make some if it goes up more, I guess. But I am not. It's getting a bit pricey for me, for my taste. But who knows? I mean, I sure don't have a firm answer of what it's going to become, and so nobody else does either. I just again look at the risk reward, and I can't really figure out the risk reward right now, but I can figure it out in some other companies. So, and the idea is, of course, because there's always, if this keeps on going, goes up 100% more, or 200% more, or maybe even more than that, yeah, obviously that's going to spark regret. But hey, if I, let's say, took out most of my money now, and I put it in other juniors that I think will go up to 300-400%. You didn't really miss that much. I mean, you won't, but obviously it would be even better if this kept running. I kept all shares, and then after even a bigger profit, then I reverted and reshuffled into some other holdings. But hey, perfection is not needed. I'm just happy to actually ride the FOMO a bit and get some more money to put into my high conviction stories, because everything adds up. Anyway, consider me biased. If I talked about any companies, I assume I own them. Headwater Gold is a sponsor, SK is a sponsor, Inflection is a sponsor. I don't know if I talked about any other companies, but yeah, so I mean, to sum up, it's like, don't underestimate the value of having a strong narrative. Typically, narrative in terms of something that will get people to allow themselves to be greedy. Preferably, again, blue sky reference points where it's basically, no price is too high. And that's what it's like. If I had to guess, that's what I could see happening in, for example, inflection. If they find something, if they hit something, boom, okay, or a smoke, or actually let's say economic interval, perhaps even. Of course, the first thing that's gonna pop into my mind is like, what if they hit another North Parks? And let's say, if possible, that grows, or they hit at another place. Then it's like, I'm gonna be starting to think like, what if this is another Arcadia? And so will other people do. But that's, I was gonna say, gonna be driven more by more data. The most extreme example is, of course, Garibaldi, without a single assay result, and they were already up to Norilsk, and in the case of Aston Bay, we're already up to trillions of dollars in value after, like, I don't know, a few new holes, which may or may not be economic, and we have no idea about the size. Obviously, that's absolutely bonkers. But yeah, so not investing advice. Consider me biased. I don't share your profits or your losses. Assume I might buy or sell any share at any given time. Thanks for listening.